Hey guys, today we're going to be making a tier list video about how much skill it requires to use each gun. Sorry I haven't been making any commentary videos, I've been busy. I've been trying to find a job so I can make an excuse for how bad I am in this game. But I've played the game enough to develop some pretty strong opinions about how much skill of your guns take to use. And these are opinions, so feel free to disagree, I don't mind that, but you know, these are my opinions, I'll stand by them. You can't really change my mind about most of them. So the top tier is for guns that are really hard to use, like the Scout and the R8, and you need a lot of skill to get very good with them. The orange tier is for guns that take a pretty good amount of skill, but not as much as the ones in top, but they're more skillful than average. The middle tier is just your average guns. The average player can use them pretty well. These are just more basic guns usually. The second to bottom row is just guns that aren't very skillful, and the bottom row of course is the most low skill guns in the game. So let's get some very obvious no-brainers. The Scar 20 and the G3 are both brain dead, and if you use these guns you're absolutely horrendous at the game. Both of these guns take literally no skill to use. Like, that's not even an argument. I think the whole community agrees with me. And thank God that both of these guns not only have a low skill floor, but a low skill ceiling as well. And you can't get really too good with these guns because like they're too costly and not good enough for their price. They're just not skillful. So yeah, these are very obvious no-brainers. And I also think putting the Scout up here is very reasonable too. This gun is just really hard to get good with. It's very risky. I mean, it's pretty cheap, so you're not risking your money here, but you're risking shooting somebody in the body and then getting shot right after. So you have to be really, really good with your aim, at your positioning, so you don't get into bad gunfights. And just overall, this gun is really, really hard to use. I'm pretty sure like this is also a no-brainer too. Let's just get rid of the sniper categories real quick. The op I have like a big problem with in team deathmatch. I'm very biased because I play a lot of practice. I know it probably takes more skill than I think it does. So maybe when I play competitive, I'll hate this gun less. And if I'm going to be honest, this gun isn't really that skillless because you really need to like make sure your shot hits. It's not as hard to use as a Scout, of course, because you can hit the body and still like kill the guy, but then that guy's friend might come up behind him and then shoot you in the face right after that. So you have to make sure you have good positioning and very good aim. Not nearly as good at aim as a Scout, of course, but you have to have good aim to make sure you hit your shot, because if you miss your shot, you're pretty much dead. And you also have to deal with all annoying things as well, like smokes, like flashbangs or whatever, in like real games. So I would say the op requires average skill. I know a lot of people would like to disagree with that. It took a lot of willpower for me not to put it in the brain dead section, but I'm going to be honest. In real games, like casual competitive, this is not that skillless. I'm going to get the rifles out of the way. They pretty much take average skill except for a save few, which I'll save for later. But yeah, these rifles, they take average skill. I'm even going to put the AUG and the SG there. Why? Well, even with the scope, they're a bit hard to use because you can't really use a scope all the time. A lot of new players like these guns because they can ADS with them as in like Call of Duty, but the reality is you can't really be ADSing all the time because it gives you tunnel vision. ADSing as a reaction is not great because the extra milliseconds it takes to aim down the sight can like lose you the gunfight. So you have to know when to not use a scope and when to use a scope. But they require less skill than the non-scope rifles like the M4 and AK because of the scope. Yes, it's not like right here because you have to think about when to use the scope, but the scope does make it easier in a lot of situations, so I'll put them over here. The AK M4 and Galil are just the basic guns. Everybody uses them. It takes average skill to use. Most people are like at least okay with it. So yeah, I'll keep them here. Although the M4 takes a little bit more skill than the AK because the recoil pattern is horrendous of the M4 and the damage it does is not as good as the AK because the AK one taps head, the M4 doesn't. So I'll put this a little bit above the AK. Now the two rifles I left out of the middle category are the M4A1S and the FAMAS. Now the FAMAS gets a tier above. Why? It's because the gun is so bad. It's really inaccurate. It does low damage, so you have to be good at positioning yourself and good at picking the gunfights you really need. The other ones are very versatile and you can just fight whatever at any range, really. I mean, longer ranges you have to be very good to aim, but it's really hard because of how inaccurate it is and how low damage it does. So because this gun is just so bad, it takes more skill to use than the other guns, because in order to be good enough with this gun to compete with other guns, you have to be very good, because again, this gun is horrible. So we'll put this over here. I also forgot to mention the recoil pattern is horrible, so that is also another factor to add to the skill that's required to use it. And the M4A1S goes below this. It's not too bad, it's not brain dead like these two guns, but like the recoil is so low that it's actually really easy to use. Now I actually have been growing towards the M4A1S a lot, contrary to my past video saying that I think the M4A1S is a little bit worse, because the accuracy, I mean, technically they both have the same bullet accuracy, but the recoil is so much lower on this one. And it also has just a lot of perks, like not having tracers and being silenced, so it also like is very good with that too. So the low recoil just really makes this like a lower skill gun. I think at the top of this tier though, because you do have to manage your ammo very well compared to the other guns, especially the Galil, because the Galil has like just a huge magazine for a rifle. But yeah, I think it's definitely lower skill than the other rifles. Not too low skill, but you can't deny that it takes less skill than the A4. The A4's recoil is like, ugh. Now that we're done with the rifles, let's move on to the pistols. I think the Deagle takes a lot of skill because it's very inaccurate at long ranges, so you have to really be like on point in the middle of their head if you're firing that far. And it also is very punishing if you don't hit the head. Yes, it's not as punishing as the R8 because you can spam the hell out of this gun accurately, kind of. But compared to other pistols, you can't actually move with it. So you have to be still and position yourself right and get in the right gunfights to use the Deagle. And you have to have good aim towards the head to use it very well. So I think it takes a lot of skill, honestly. I mean, yeah, people spam this gun a lot, but it also makes the gun a lot less accurate, so if you want to use it well, you really have to be good at aiming at the head. I think the USP also takes a lot of skill just because it's a pistol. So in any round that's not like pistol round, you have to really be good at aiming at the head. And even in pistol round, like, you have to hit the head, because you can buy Kevlar armor without a helmet, and that means that you have to hit the head with the USP. So I think it takes a lot of skill just because it's like a lot weaker than the other guns. Like after the pistol round. During the pistol round, I think it's average because it's like every other gun in the pistol round, but after the pistol round, they're gonna have helmets and stuff, so I think it takes a good amount of skill. And I'm gonna put the P2000 in there as well because they're like basically the same gun, but one suppressed, which makes it a lot better. So yeah, moving on to the other pistols. The Glock. I'm gonna put the Glock in here because compared to the USP, this is a lot more spammable and has way better running accuracy. Of course, it's not brain dead, but I think the spammability makes this gun like really crazy even outside of pistol rounds. I kind of underestimated this gun like before because of the fact that it takes 3 shots to hit a headshot, but you can run around so fast with this thing. Oh my god. Like, I've been destroyed by a Glock when I was like holding like rifles because of how fast these guys can move around with it and how spammable this thing is. But it's, again, not brain dead. It takes some good skill to like aim at the head while you're running around, so I'll keep it here. Now the dual Brett's, I'm not sure whether it's brain dead or doesn't take much skill to use because these guns are so freaking spammable. I used to buy these all the time in pistol rounds just to spam people with it. And the only reason it didn't work was because I didn't know there was recoil patterns in this game yet, so I didn't know I was supposed to like just follow that pattern. I just kind of like moved my mouse downwards whenever I felt like it. You do have to deal with the recoil pattern, but it's very brain dead once you get that recoil pattern down. I'll make sure this is at the bottom of the doesn't take much skill to use list because, yeah, it's not as great as like the better guns out there, so it definitely gets it definitely can stay out of brain dead because of that. And it also and it has a kind of like annoying recoil pattern if you're not used to it, so it takes a little bit of skill to use this gun, but not too much. CZ75, I'll put, it's kind of hard to place a CZ75 actually, because the CZ75, while being full auto, has like horrendous inaccuracy with the spray pattern, and it just has horrendous inaccuracy in general. It has a very low magazine size, and you have to be very conservative with it. So you can't really do full auto with it unless they're like in front of you. However, you can do like tiny bursts, like bursts of 2 shots, but that's practically it. Because of the low ammo and stuff, I think I might just place it in here as it takes a lot of skill. Because this gun, you wouldn't think to be unable to spam with it because it has a big magazine and it's full auto, but you cannot spam with it. You have to burst fire to be accurate and make sure you're conserving your ammo because you only have 2 magazines in there. So you can't really just like walk up to like a mid-range gunfight and spam. You have to actually burst with it, so I'll put it up here. I think the 5.7 requires average skill to use, but on the higher end I think, like around here, because the 5.7 doesn't have good running accuracy, so you actually have to position yourself well and aim well to hit the headshots that the 5.7 is good at doing damage with. Yes, it is somewhat spammable, but it is also like not great at long range if you spam it, so you have to be able to like slow down your shots at longer ranges. This is true with like every like gun pretty much, but a little bit more true with this. Like mid-range, you have to slow down your shots a little bit because you can't spam it at mid-range or else you might not hit your target. Tech 9, however, this gun is so freaking strong for being a pistol because of how fast you could run with it and still be accurate. It has more spammability than the 5.7 and it has the same headshot potential. I'll put it in here because of just how fast you can spam this freaking thing. It's not brain dead for sure because you do have to aim it, but the main thing that makes shooting so difficult in CSGO compared to other games is that you can't move while shooting or else it'll be inaccurate. But when there are guns that are still accurate when you move, that kind of just puts them below a tier in terms of skill compared to like other guns that require you to stand still and shoot. So I think because of its run and gun factor and spammability, I think it'll go here. The one last pistol that's here is the P250. I'll put it like around here next to the 5.7. You really cannot spam with it. You have to make sure you time your shots pretty well, but you can run and gun with it. It's not too inaccurate when you run and gun, but it is pretty slow. You have to make sure you hit your shots well. It is very cheap though, so that's a pretty good deal. But I wouldn't say it takes a lot of skill though, because it does more damage than the Glock and USP, so it's a lot more forgiving than both. And it has more range because its range modifier is for some reason really good. Its range modifier is 0.9, I think, which means it has very low damage drop off. So it can actually be used to fight at long ranges very well. So you kind of use this gun a little bit like a rifle. So because of the similarity, it also kind of goes next to the rifles. And I almost forgot about this one, the R8. I'm going to put this at the top. First off, it's not that great of a gun. It's not horrible, in my opinion, like other people think it is, because it actually does have some nice usage, especially in pistol rounds, because you can hit people really hard in the stomach with it, and your teammate might be able to finish them off really easily if you hit them with the R8s. But this gun takes a lot of skill, especially after the pistol round, because you have to be really good at hitting headshots. First off, it's like the Scout, but it also has low amount of ammunition, and it has that charge up time, which makes it really hard. So you can't really react to people coming out at you very well because you have to charge up your guns. So you have to kind of predict them actually if they're running up at you. You kind of have to like listen very well, and if you peek them, you don't have as big of an advantage because you still have to charge up your gun. However, you can charge up your gun before you peek, but that requires timing. So it's really hard to use this gun very well because of just how it's really slow firing. It has a charge up and it has low ammo. And yeah, you can spam it with a right click, but it's so inaccurate, you will never need to use that. Unless they're right in front of you, do not spam that right click button. So yeah, like for basically every situation where you don't use the right click button, which is like every single time, it's very hard to use. I'll put it right at the top. Now we're at the SMG section. I'll start with the SMGs first. I think the MP9, while being very good in the meta, it requires good skill. I wouldn't put it up here, but I will put it down here because the recoil pattern is horrendous. Like, yeah, you can like pull down for the first 10 bullets, but after the 10 bullets, your gun goes haywire. You're not going to be able to hit that thing very well unless you practice thousands of hours inside that recoil practice thing. Yes, it is a run and gun weapon, which does put it down like a tier. If it wasn't a run and gun weapon and you had to stand still to be accurate with it, it would be like up here. But the thing that does make it hard are the recoil pattern and the low damage, because you have to hit the head multiple times to get the kill. Because you have to either hit the body multiple times and then the head twice. And the head twice is a lot more preferable. So yeah, I think this gun is average skill, although I can see a lot of people disagreeing, maybe putting it down here or something. But I'll put it up here, and to reiterate why I'm putting it up here is because of the recoil pattern, the low damage, and I forgot to mention this, but also the fact that it runs out of ammo fast because of how fast it fires. You kind of have to control the gun in order to make sure you're not like losing all your ammo, but it's definitely at the bottom of the list because of how running it because of the spammability. So yeah, the Mac 10, however, goes down here because this time it has good running accuracy, but now the recoil is like actually kind of easy to shoot. Like if you go into the recoil map, you can just tell immediately that the gun is a lot easier to shoot than the MP9, and it also costs less, so you have like no risk when it comes to like picking up this gun. So this, I'll put it down here because it's a less skillful MP9, and because the SMGs like the MP7 and the MP5 are just so run and gunny, I'll put them down here, and I'll put the PP19 Bison here too. Both of these guns have pretty easy recoil patterns. They're very run and gun weapons, and the fact that they don't do very much damage per hit really just does not make up for the fact that you can just run and gun like it's Call of Duty. Now the UMP45 goes a tier higher though because of how slow it fires. The opposite reason of the MP9, because the slow fire makes it so you have to like hit your shots pretty well. Can't really spam it as hard as with the other SMGs. And you have to make sure to only pick close range fights because this gun has such a bad range modifier that if you pick a fight that's anywhere outside of like point blank range, it's not gonna do any damage. So because you need good positioning and like good aim because of how slow it fires, you can argue that the other SMGs require good positioning, but these guns work well at longer ranges than the AUMP just because of how bad the range modifier is. So I think that these guns are a lot more lenient with the positioning in my opinion. And now the SMG that I'm about to put in the bottom tier is the P90. But you might say this gun is bad, it's too expensive for its performance. The cost is way too high and you're not going to do well with it economically in competitive and casual. Maybe in casual though, because this gun is really just hard to deal with, especially in deathmatch. This gun is the biggest nuisance I've ever seen, and I just hate having to play against this gun because these motherfuckers with this gun just run around, and when compared to like literally any other gun, it's just so spammable. And the spammability with the running and gunning really just set it at the bottom of the tier list, especially because it has 50 rounds and it has a very good damage output. It fires at the same rate as the MP9, but with a slightly higher damage. Yes, its recoil pattern is annoying, and yes, it doesn't have great running accuracy, but it's good enough to like just murder anybody that's like very close to you. And yeah, you're free to disagree with this placement. You can argue about positioning or whatever, or the cost of it or whatever, but I think this gun just did not take like any skill to use because you just run and gun with it like Call of Duty and spam everybody. And now it's time to move on to the shotguns. I never really think of shotguns as high skill in like any other game, but in this game they take a little bit of skill. I still will never I still will always hate playing against a shotgun, but I cannot deny that they take more skill in this game, because in this game the shotguns have a pellet pattern, and you have to know the pellet pattern to actually aim the gun at longer ranges and actually damage people at longer ranges. Otherwise you're going to miss every shot. I've seen some people like miss shotguns at close ranges and just die with a shotgun, when in any other game they'd win because shotguns are crazy stupid at close ranges in other games. But in this game, you actually have to aim the shotguns. I think the Nova requires average skill because of the fact that it's not that great of a gun, I guess. A lot of people say it's not a great gun. I beg to differ because it does so much damage, but it has a low fire rate, so you can't spam the gun. Yes, you can run a gun with it, but it's a shotgun, so that's expected. You have to know the pellet pattern to get the shots at long range, and you have to have good positioning because unlike the SMGs. Obviously, it has a shorter range, so you have to have good positioning and good knowledge of the pellets, so you can use this gun well. I'll put it a bit higher actually. Now, the sawed-off, I think it takes even more skill because this gun has even worse range than the Nova, so the fact that it's a bad gun kind of puts up here. Yeah, it has a faster fire rate, but it's just such a bad gun. I'm not even gonna deny, I think this gun is terrible. It can't like hit anything past like point blank range or something. So because of how short the range is, you really have to make sure you get in the fights, that you're able to like win the fights, that you can take. And yeah, you can argue that you can just camp in the corner and stuff, but in real games you have to move, you have to rotate, so you have to really be able to like move well with a sawed-off in order to get good kills with it. So I'll put it up here. Now the Mag 7, I'll put it down here. Now one thing I forgot to mention that makes the shotgun a little bit harder to use too is that anytime you reload, you can't reload too quickly. Although if you want just one round, yeah, you can reload quickly, but yeah, if you want to reload the whole mag, it takes forever. So you have to be conservative with your ammo, make sure every shot counts, or else you have to deal with like a long ass reload time. However, with the Mag 7, you don't really need to do that. You have a magazine like every other gun, and it also has a good range and a good fire rate. I'll put it down here. Yeah, you still need no pellet pattern, you still need good positioning, but the extra range, the extra fire rate, and the magazine, I think it drops it down. Because it's a shotgun, I had to give these higher ratings of skill because of the downsides to this gun, but this gun doesn't have too many of those, so I'll put this down here. Yes, again, short range, pellet pattern, but don't matter as much as this gun because the faster fire rate and the slightly extra range, I think. Now this shotgun is brain dead, and I think you can tell why. And I refuse to put it anywhere else because you just spam so fast with it. I forgot to this to the top, by the way. You spam so fast with it. You run a gun with it, and it has very good range because if you can't kill them in one hit, you can just spam the gun and kill them in like 2 more hits within a half second. So this gun has the same issues as the P90, but even worse because it's a shotgun, and you can be a little bit more lenient about how you aim. Yeah, again, pellet pattern, but because you can spam so fast, it doesn't even matter if your pellets are inaccurate. You can kill people like really fast in mid ranges. Like it's not even restricted to shorter ranges because how fast it fires. You can just kill people at like SMG range because you can spam the gun, and it has good mobility. It gives you a lot of money for killing people with it, and you can run a gun with it. So all those factors combined, just put this at the brain dead category. I don't care what you have to say. But now we're at the infamous light machine guns. You would expect the Negev to be brain dead because it has a literal laser beam after like the first few shots. However, I would put it at this area because while it's very strong in terms of damage and it has very good recoil, you move really slowly with it. And you can't react to people coming at you because with the Negev, the bullets are horrendously inaccurate for the first 2 shots. So unless they're like not looking at you and they don't know you're there, you're probably going to die if you get peeked with the Negev. Because if they know you're there and they're like shooting you because they know you're there, well then you're not going to get the hits. Because the Negev does not have any accuracy at the first few shots. Unless they're like in front of you, then you can just kill them pretty well. And you also have to position yourself to pick fights where the Negev is useful, so it does take a little bit of skill to do that. However, it still gets down here because of how spammable it is. Sometimes you can literally just shut a whole place down by just shooting the Negev. And it has a lot of ammo, so if you're getting in fights, you don't have to worry too much about ammo management. So it lands in this category because it's the most spammy of all spam guns. However, the M249 lands at the top. Why? Yeah, it's another spam gun, but this time the recoil pattern is absolutely horrendous. You need to get very good at this specific recoil pattern if you ever want to land good shots with this gun. Like, oh my god, it's hard as hell to master this recoil pattern. It's ridiculous. And like, it's so hard to control that somebody might peek you while you're shooting, unlike the Negev, because if somebody peeks a Negev while the Negev is shooting, they're gonna die because the Negev user can just like point the Negev at their head. no problem, but the M249 has to get control of the recoil pattern and might get shot while doing it. It's a very slow gun, and it's very costly. So if we're talking about like casual and competitive, then you have to be very good at trolling people, because you're never going to get an opportunity where buying this gun would actually be a good idea. So you'd have to be using this gun as a challenge, and you'll be at a disadvantage because you have to deal with that annoying recoil pattern. You have to deal with the slowness, and you have to deal with the fact that you're not going to get any utility or armor because you spent 5,250 on this gun. You're never going to get an opportunity to use this gun in a match without either sacrificing something, without sacrificing like utility and armor. So if you want to ever be successful with this gun in a regular match, then you're going to suffer. Unless the other team is throwing really bad, in which case you're going to win anyway. So that doesn't really count. But if we're talking about team deathmatch, this gun drops the tier. And you might be thinking, well, imagine team deathmatch with a P90 and how it's annoying in team deathmatch. Why not apply that to the M249? Well, because it's annoying as hell even in casual and competitive. I know it doesn't have a great skill ceiling. It's not very high skill ceiling because you're going to get killed against better players when using this gun. But against like the average player, you can just shred them. You just run around in casual or competitive and just kill them all with a P90 because of how fast you can run, how fast the gun shoots, and how much ammo you have. So even without considering team deathmatch, this still goes down here. So if team deathmatch was considered, it would be here. But it's not being considered, so it's going to go up here because of just how horrible the gun is. The gun is not good, and you have to sacrifice so much in order to use this gun well in a game. So I will put this up here. And yeah, that's the list. If you disagree with any of this, let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day, unless you use the SCAR 20 or the G3. Goodbye.